So at the break, Sharon had a couple of questions, and she asked good questions. And we were talking about the POS and how many POS she should have, or where did I get the 175 or the 200 or the 150? So where did I get that number, Jessica?
Weren't those just numbers that you could use every time to judge?
Yeah, it's just a standard of operations. In other words, how well do I want to manage this particular business? So any of you ever work in banquets? Yeah. And they typically, in banquets, have a system very similar. So if you work as a server in banquets, how many tables did you have?
Well, I worked at banquets at the Peabody.
Right.
And it was more so like a satellite bar and people come up to you versus like serving other people like at a wedding. I was like a satellite bar.
Okay. Normally in banquet service, you would assign one server for every 20 people. So if you had tables of 10, how many servers would you need for 2 tables? One, right. So if I had 20 tables, how many servers would I need? I had 20 tables. Each waiter, each server takes care of 2 tables.
Oh, you need 10 servers.
How'd you get that number?
Because there's 20 tables and you need a server for every 2 tables, so you divide 20 by 2.
Right. So in this particular case, it's the same thing. We set the standard. We said we're going to have 1 server for every 20 people. If the tables had 8, they were 8 at each table. How many servers would I need? Each server would have how many tables? That's where you have to make a decision. Am I going to change it to 1 to 16? Or am I going to, because now I'm in between numbers. Does that make sense? So this is basically the same thing as what you would determine. Sharon asked the question, and we went back over it again, and she said, where'd you get the 175 to 200? And I said, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to see if this number right here with labor, okay, we're allowed to hire enough people to work in the stadium. That makes sense? So we said if we've got 10,000 people coming, and our standard is 1 POS for every 175, then we can actually bring in, 510 hours, because we had 85 employees times 6 hours per person average. That was 510. So let's just do this test. Let's go back and say we have 150 is our standard. How many POS do I need? I think you told me it was 66. Okay? So now we have 66, not 57. Now, what do we do with the 66?
1.5.
1.5. In other words, that's kind of our average employees.
99.
99 employees. How many hours do they work?
6 hours.
6 hours. So what's 99 times 6?
594.
Is that still under the 612? So we actually could increase the number of points of sale, okay, and still make our budget, right? What if we did this? Let's go back and change the scenario slightly. Let's say that we're going to go back to the 175 points of sale, okay? But for this event, we want to sparkle, because the people that are coming to this event, their stadium is up for bid next year. And we want to bid on that. So we want to show them how good we are and how great our service is. So we're going to go back to the 175, but instead of having 1.5, we're going to have 2 employees. So what is 57 times 2?
114.
114 times how many hours?
6.
6.
685.
685. What does that do?
Over our budget.
Puts us over our budget. So then we'd have to make a decision. Do we want to go over our budget? And instead of doing 10%, maybe 12%? Because we're really advertising, right? So we'll take a little bit of expense to do it really well. All right. So since we were talking about personnel. I wanted to kind of break things down a little bit. When you're starting to plan for personnel, you want to think in terms of, do I have an organizational chart? And this is going to become important because at this particular event, okay, we're going to have vendors and we're going to have bars and catering. So have we created a responsibility chart? Who's going to be in charge of what? Do we have an hourly labor schedule, which is what we just worked on? Now there's a computer schedule method that's out there now with their actual computer programs where you put these numbers in and it will tell you exactly how many employees you need and how many hours they can work. Back in the old days when I was here, we used pencil and paper and we kind of figured it out. Now at Malco Theaters, every one of our managers belongs to a particular data processing computer schedule method, and they plug in how many staff members are needed based on what the projected ticket sales are. And it kind of writes a schedule for them. And then they can just print that on their computer. Everybody sees it in advance. Do you guys have apps where you can go into your app and see what your schedule is?
No.
Yeah.
Mine's not an app, but it's a website.
Yeah.
But it's like specifically for my coworkers.
That's exactly right. So every one of the Malco locations, if you went to work for Malco, you could take out your cell phone, go to that app, and it would tell you what your schedule is for the week.
And we can also like ask off
Yes.
on the app too.
That's
so
right.
it's kind of nice.
Yes. Well, it's called technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the same thing is you can also see who else is off, I think. And you can call in and say, hey, Kevin, can you work for me Friday? I've got an emergency. And then Kevin can say, no, I'm going to the basketball game or whatever. Or no, Larry, I don't like you at all. You gave me a 70 on the exam. No, I'm kidding. Okay. By the way, I didn't tell you my daddy joke today.
Whoa, we were just dying.
You're-
We're
yeah.
dying to hear.
I know, okay.
Absolutely.
What do you call a happy farmer? A jolly rancher. All right.
Nice.
Is there going to be any specific training for the event? So I told you about Promise Keepers. When they came to the Liberty Bowl Stadium, we were typically used to running one particular event, a football game or a concert, and it would start at a time and end at a time. In this particular case, that event started at 7 in the morning and ran until 10 o'clock at night. What's different about that event than, say, a football game?
Can you repeat that? I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
When we had Promise Keepers, it was a retreat. They came. We opened the gates at 7 in the morning and they got finished at 10 o'clock at night. Typically when you run a concert, it would start at 6 at night and be over at 10. Or if you had a football game, it'd start 2 in the afternoon and be over at 6. So what's the difference between those two events?
You said the event was a freedom. Was
It's
it
a Christian
It's an
retreat.
all-day event.
All-day event. What does that mean?
It means lunch and dinner.
And breakfast.
Oh, and breakfast, yeah.
So lunch and dinner we're kind of used to doing, right? Hamburgers and hot dogs, and we can do pizzas and sandwiches, and we can do that. How often are we doing pastries and coffee and egg sandwiches and those kinds of things? So it took extra training for us for that particular event. So is there any specific training that you need? When Paul McCartney came, did I tell you a story where he said no meat products sold? Have I told you that story?
No.
Okay. So Paul McCartney came to the Liberty Bowl Stadium, this is a long time ago, but when he came, in his rider, in his contract, he said, concessionaire can sell no meat items. Linda, his wife, and I, we're vegetarians. We don't want to smell grease. We don't want to smell hamburgers or hot dogs cooking. You can't sell any meat items, only vegetables.
And Paul McCartney said this?
Yes.
What did you do?
Yeah, what did I do?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah,
Were
what
people
did you
mad?
do?
Well, the general public didn't know because this is well in advance. We're getting ready for the event. We're having a pre-event meeting.
He probably did do it.
So what I said was, I gave this city $1 million guarantee in sales. And you're not going to come in and tell me that I can't sell the products that I have already planned my entire year around.
Because meat is expensive too, so
Yeah.
meat is probably a lot of your sales.
So in that particular case, we had to do a little training. We brought in vegetarian hamburgers and veggie dogs, but we continued to sell the rest of the products. That makes sense? In this particular case, there are a lot of riders in this contract. One, no one could be inside the stadium itself, okay, when they did their rehearsals. Normally, we're out cleaning, sweeping seats, getting everything ready. So we had to evacuate the stadium during their rehearsal. We weren't used to that. So each special event, there is required some kind of additional training. Any assignments, any specific assignments for people? So we did have to hire, for that Paul McCartney event, we had to hire security guards that walked the concourse to make sure no one was walking through the exits and trying to get a sneak peek of, the rehearsal in advance. So we had other assignments for people. Turns out in this particular case, the stage was on the south end zone. And so the south end zone was blocked off all the way around. They didn't want people backstage or behind the stage. And so that was a different kind of, we had to have people stationed there so that people would not try to go completely around the stadium, full circle. Are there any special requirements? I kind of gave you some samples, but a lot of times we'll do, if you have a concert, the particular entertainer will have what they call a green room, or a space they can go in prior to. In that particular case, you're going to have a lot of special requirements. I've known entertainers that said they want M&Ms, but they only want green M&Ms. Now they make M&Ms where they're just specific colors, you can buy them like that. But in the old days, we literally had to pick out all the green M&Ms and put them in a bowl. Some people want organic tea from India. Some people want a special organic honey. They always write in special requirements that are very difficult to abide by. Now, why would they do that?
To make it personal, to personalize their event.
Yeah, I mean, they have their quirkiness, but why does the promoter write in all these very specifics?
To make sure that
They always look for an out clause. They always want to come in and say, oh, by the way, there were 2 yellow M&Ms, so we're not going to pay you for the catering. You didn't do what we asked you to do.
So they want to make sure they make it clear from up front.
No. The
They
promoters
They
are
wanna
very
make it
difficult. They're
They
looking
don't
for
take that
ways.
seriously?
See, they're
They're
trying
not
to save money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many
And so they're
bags
looking
of
for
M&Ms?
things that are very difficult to abide by, that push you, that make you take everything you're doing very seriously. Because if you, for example, if they ask for specific size croissant, say a 3-ounce croissant and you bring in a 2-ounce croissant, they're not going to pay you for the catering. Or they would say they're not going to pay you for the catering. Yeah, it is ridiculous. If you talk to people in the industry, they can come up with some great stories. Great stories.
So how many bags of M&Ms did you go through?
I don't remember. That was not my job. We had a catering person and that's what they did. But I remember a long time ago, anybody here know what the Mid-South Coliseum is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Mid-South Coliseum, Elton John came to town. And we had the responsibility for that concert. And in this particular case, we were required, you talk about special requirements, we turned the men's locker room shower area into a lounge. We had live plants, couches, recliners, New York Times newspaper, all kinds of specialty things to make it look like a den, almost like a hotel suite.
How did it smell?
Yeah. What do you do about the smell? Athlete's feet, whatever. So we had to have the room deodorized. And so here's the funny story. The funny story goes like this. We had an HR person who didn't know anything about our business. And so he just wanted to follow me at this particular event just to see what we do in operations. So we're walking around pre-event. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm giving him the same speech I just gave you. Okay? And I'm telling him about these riders and these special requirements that are so stupid. I would tell you that nearly 9 times out of 10, the entertainer doesn't even go into that room. They drive up either in a limo or on a bus, go right up on stage, it's immediately over, they get in a limo and they drive off. 9 times out of 10. And so this is the story I'm telling it. And we're in a room like this. It's the locker room. And I'm walking around and I'm saying, you know, look at this. I had to get New York Times newspapers. And I had to get this specialty tea from England. And I had to get this and I had to get that. And I said, look at the showers. We got, you know, Schefflera plants and palm trees and all kinds of stuff in here. And it looked really nice. And there was someone sitting on a couch reading a newspaper with his legs crossed. Okay? And I'm kind of talking, I'm not talking out loud like I am now, but I was kind of whispering this stuff. And so as I'm going through this whole scenario and whining, complaining, okay, about this, the gentleman closes the newspaper and sets it on the little coffee table. It's Elton John. So there I am the whole time whining about Elton John and all these specific requirements, and he's sitting right there. Yeah. Teaches you to keep your mouth shut.
What did he say?
Nothing. He was very nice.
Though.
Huh?
He's a diva.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
What am I
And he
doing?
knows it.
All right. So special requirements, do you need any special employees or staff? Do you have to have, for example, in a lot of these stadiums, you don't typically need sous chefs. But what if you had a special event for Elton John and they wanted an ice carving of a piano? You might have to hire a chef that'll make you an ice carving.
You don't need any special, well, you do need, unless you would consider buffet people as special employees.
Sometimes you would, okay? So when we did Promise Keepers, we had a catering staff of about 10 to 12 people. But when we were doing this, we had to feed all the volunteer employees. And we had 10 different kitchens where we had to set up employee kitchens. So I had to go out and hire, you know, enough people to manage all these other outposts where they were feeding the employees. So what did I do? What would you do, Marley? Here you are. You got 10 catering employees. You typically can take care of the stadium itself, the skyboxes, with your employees, right? Now you have this huge event coming for 3 days, and they have some 10,000 volunteers that are going to be working, and part of their volunteer agreement is they get free meals. And so you have to set up 10 different employee dining rooms. There were actually tents in the parking lots. So one was for like the security employees, and one was for like the escorts. They had transportation, picking people up back and forth to the airport. What would you do?
Would you use the volunteers?
No.
Instead?
I called the various hotels, and I said, I need some help. I've got this special event coming, and I'd like to know if your catering staff would like to make some extra money. And can you give me Holiday Inn 10 employees? And then I called another one. I called, you know, the Hilton, and I called the Hyatt. I called the Convention Center. And so we basically brought the entire food service staff in Memphis together. Everybody had an assignment, and they kind of ran it. The special employees, special security, kind of the same thing. Money in banking. Normally when you run an event like at the Liberty Bowl, when the football team plays, Loomis will bring in the cash fund, the money, the M, okay, the capital, and it'll get at the stadium about 4 hours before kickoff, before the event starts. And we have specialty employees in that cash room. What kind of employees would you hire in a cash room?
People that have experience with money,
And that would be?
Accountant.
like bank tellers.
Bank tellers, exactly. A lot of bank tellers want an extra couple hours. They want an extra paycheck. They come in on a Saturday, they sit in a room like this, and they break all the money down into banks. And then when it comes back, they count it, get it assembled right so that it goes to the bank properly. So you need to make, how much money do you need? Typically for a Promise Keepers, remember it went from 7 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. A regular event, the money would come in about 4 hours before, right? And then they would pick it up 2 hours after the game. So when you see these stadiums, you have to understand that there's really not a lot of money in the stadium except when the event's taking place. In this particular case, 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, it was very hard for that. So what did we end up doing? What do you think we did? We created a bank vault. And we had to have extra security, you know, serious security that stood around and watch that money, because we couldn't be going back and forth 3 days in a row with that much business all taking place at the same time. Employee access. I told you about Paul McCartney and they closed off the one end of the stadium, right? Same thing happened when Auburn plays Alabama. Every person in the state of Alabama wants to go to that game. There's 85,000 seats. Typically, those tickets are already sold. So every person then wants to be a volunteer to come to work. Right? I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to be a vendor, whatever. We had to have a special gate where everybody had to provide their name and their social security number before they could even come into the building. And they had to have, the food service operator had to have a list of employees. If your name wasn't on that list and provided to security in advance, you couldn't come in. So employee access will change. Normally the employee gate is around, I'll say gate 4. But because Paul McCartney's coming and they've closed off that end of the stadium, you have to change the employee entrance to gate number 7. Make sense?
Are there a lot of different people that like figure out different aspects of the events?
Yes.
Because this is, I mean, it's just crazy how much you have to think about.
Yeah. We're going to do that in this last hour. Okay, we're going to talk about, that's what we call critical path method. Thinking about things in advance and drawing a specific plan,
And
an
like
outline.
you have a specific team
Yep.
that does this.
Yep. Yep. Any special equipment? Maybe they want a chocolate fountain in their suite. So you have to get special equipment. Maybe somebody likes espresso, so you have to run an espresso machine. Any other things? So these are special requirements. When you take the test is going to be mostly what we've done this morning and last week. It's going to be the math part. But as an educator, I want you to understand that all of this may impact the profitability. So you remember direct expenses, Form D? This is what we're talking about. Added expenses that we didn't have normally. All right, so here's our summary. The summary is we're going to make a plan, right? We're going to use what I would call the critical path method. And let's see what page that is in the book. 145. Remember, planning is the essence of management. Event planning is the essence of concession stand management. If you go to page 146, you'll see the 10 steps of successful event planning. The first thing you have to do is create a plan. So, Marley, you asked a really good question. I think I should go over here to this. Hopefully these will write good. Marley said, boy, there's a lot of planning that has to go involved for any of these events. Do you have a specific team that does this? And how does it work?
No, the first one will work.
Typically, I would set up a schedule. I'd have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. For me to create the event, okay, there are certain things I have to do on Monday to be sure that we get things taken care of on Saturday. So, let's use the Yankees case history. What time did we say the game starts? 2 p.m. in the afternoon, right? What time do our gates open?
2 hours before.
2 hours before, which is?
Noon.
I'm going to call it gate. What time is the event over?
By 5.
Around 5 p.m. So here's how I like to coach you guys. What I would say is this. Everybody close your eyes. Seriously, close your eyes. Put yourself in a nice, happy spot. Now imagine you're the manager of the AutoZone Park, and it's 2 o'clock. Saturday afternoon. What does the stadium look like?
Mass chaos.
Yeah.
Wrong answer.
Oh.
Okay. If we wanted it to be perfect, what would it look like?
Ready?
It would be what?
Ready?
Ready. What do you mean by ready?
I thought she was like, it would look pretty.
It would be ready. What does ready mean?
Set up, stocked, people manning their stations,
We're getting there.
lines.
I'm walking
not
in,
crazy.
here I am, I want to see the most perfect environment possible. What's the first thing I look at?
The
The
game.
score of the game.
No.
The game.
I want to see cleanliness. I want to see organization. I want to see sanitation. I don't want to see ice on the ground. I don't want to see paper over here. I don't want to see ketchup dripping off the dispensers. I want to see something that looks clean, smooth, sanitary. Right? What's the next thing I want to see? Organization. I want to see an employee in front of every POS. I want to see menu boards that are lit up and giving me great descriptions of the food items. As I walk through, what do I want to see? Employees in uniform and smiles and hi, welcome, thank you for coming to the game. Go Tigers, go Yankees. That's what I want to see. So what you have to do is have a vision. Remember we went, I'm going to go all the way back to day one. What was the first thing you do when you make a goal? You have to have an objective. To have an objective, you have to have a vision. What is it you want at the end of this? What do we want at the end of this? Okay. So we said gate is noon. When does the money need to be there?
4 hours before.
So I'm going to put here on Saturday, 8 a.m. Loomis. If they come at 8 a.m., what time do they pick up the money?
2 hours after, so 7.
Now I kind of look at this and I'm saying, okay, there's a lot of things I need to know. I'm going to sort of back up now, and I'm going to start at the beginning of the week. The very first thing that happens, Monday, 10 a.m. Planning meeting. Marley, to your point, the stadium manager is going to be there. The director of police is going to be there. The fire marshal is going to be there. The ticket sales manager is going to be there. The director of concessions is going to be there. All of the people who are going to be working that day are going to find out everything that we need to know so that it looks perfect right here when we open the gates. So for example, traffic patterns. You guys go to many of the football games at the University of Memphis? What they do, because there's so much traffic, they change like Central Avenue and it goes to one-way traffic. Or Hollywood goes one-way traffic, or they shut it off so cars can't go up and down because they turn it into pedestrian areas. They have specific areas like at Toby Park where you can park, right? And so they have all these mass people they have to move back and forth. The police chief is going to tell you, I'm going to have 85 officers working the streets around the stadium directing traffic. And you know, the coordinator for the event is going to say the Yankees are going to come in Central Avenue at exactly 10 o'clock in the morning and warm up. Now, why would I need to know that? I'm the food service guy. What do I care where they come and where they park, and what do I care about the baseball players?
They're going to be hungry.
Huh?
They might be hungry.
They might be hungry. Or they might need ice in the locker room, and they might need Gatorade or Powerade. They might have a specific list of things they need. So I need to know, when are they coming in? Which locker room are they going to use? Do they have any special requirements? So on Monday, I need to call the manager for the baseball team and say, hey, the Yankees are coming. We understand you're going to come in gate 3 at 10 a.m. Do you have any special needs? Yes, we need 30 pounds of ice. We need 6 cases of Coke. The coach's room needs pretzels and M&Ms, and we need gum and all kinds of things. So I make my list on Monday. So on Monday, you have your planning meeting. What do I find out on Monday? What's the most important thing I need to know?
When the team shows up.
No? Revert back to your method over here. What's the first thing we need to know?
Your sales, your projected sales.
How do we get projected sales?
Attendance.
I need to know the attendance. So the first question I'm going to ask in this meeting is, how many people are coming? And the ticket manager is going to say, we sold out, we sold 10,000 tickets. Now I know 10,000 tickets. What's another question I might ask?
What's the per cap?
How would I find out the per cap?
It's given.
I might say this in the meeting. I might say, how many different places have the Yankees played this summer or this spring? And what are ticket sales like? What are per caps like? So I'm going to call Tampa, and I'm going to call St. Petersburg, and I'm going to call Gainesville, and I'm going to call Naples, and I'm going to call different stadiums and see what they typically sell.
So you have to determine the per capita in the meeting.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get as much information as possible. I know right now that at the Redbird Stadium it's $6.50. But after this meeting, I'm going to call 5 other stadiums and say, how'd you do with the Yankees? And they'd had their spring training. And they're going to say $7, $8, $7.25, okay? And I'm not going to go here, and I'm not going to go here. I'm going to go someplace in the middle. That's what I'm doing on Monday. Now that I know how many people are coming, what else can I do?
Determine your sales.
I'm going to do the same sheet you did. I'm going to figure out how many hot dogs do I need, right? I need to know my materials. What else do I need to know?
Manpower.
Manpower, so I can make a schedule, right?
Yep.
Do you like getting your schedule on Thursday for a Saturday event?
No.
I hate
I
that.
hate it too.
My
So if I'm going to be a good leader and a good manager, what am I going to do? When am I going to put the schedule out?
Monday.
Monday.
Like a normal
Tuesday.
person.
Okay,
Sunday.
let's just say Monday evening. But it may be Tuesday.
Friday.
What am I going to do Monday afternoon? I'm going to figure out how many hot dogs I need, how many cups I need, how much bread I need, how much ketchup I need. Are there any special requirements that I have to have? So, do I have to order a special salami from New York that's imported? I can't wait till Thursday to do that. Okay? So I'm going to figure out my materials and my manpower on Monday. What am I going to do on Tuesday?
Start putting everything together. Like
I'm gonna-
ordering everything, ordering inventory, organizing inventory.
That's exactly right. So the schedule and the order goes in Tuesday morning. What else do I need on Tuesday? What else do I do?
Would you check availability? Probably.
Probably.
Well, I guess that comes with schedule.
Yes.
Um,
I'm going to set the schedule. Hopefully nobody complains. What else do I do on Tuesdays?
Clean? maybe?
Yeah.
Like how to clean stuff?
I like your idea, but I typically would clean on Thursday. Why Thursday versus Tuesday?
Because it's closer.
It's closer.
Less
So
time.
Thursday and Friday is usually cleaning day. I'm going to place the order. When do I want the order received?
By Wednesday,
Wednesday.
hopefully.
Wednesday? I like the way you think.
Or Thursday.
Why Thursday?
So you can make sure that you have everything right before.
That's exactly right. Wednesday's a good idea, okay, but I have a little bit of risk in case the power outage or something like that. Thursday is probably better. The danger you run in on Thursday is, let's say I ordered 65 cases of hot dogs, and they only brought me 50.
Yeah, then you're. kind of-
Now I'm between a rock and a hard place. I got 24 hours to kind of figure that out. So at least I got 24 hours. I can't tell you how many people that get an order, they get it delivered Friday afternoon at 6 o'clock, Friday at 5. Now they're short 15 cases of hot dogs. What do?
Shit out of luck.
They're calling Sam's or Costco or something. But that,
Sending their employees over there,
yes,
Kroger,
Yeah.
The P card.
yes.
Oops.
for the $20 bill.
So we're going to get our delivery here on Thursday. What else do we need to do?
Again, clean.
Or
Okay.
maybe
I typically would clean on Friday morning, sanitize.
Should
Yes.
you stock everything?
Stock inventory.
Thank you. Exactly. So we're going to stock on Fridays. Stock the stands.
If anything needs to be prepped for the event, you should Friday.
That's exactly right. Prep work. So if I need let's say nacho cheese made. A lot of places make their own nacho cheese. Some people already buy it pre-made. Some have portion control cups. But all of this changes. If I have catering, I'm going to have to certainly think in terms of getting the rooms ready. How about linens?
Make sure they're dry cleaned and pressed and ready.
Right. Table skirts. Am I going to be using disposable or am I going to be using silver? Do typical concession stands have silverware?
No.
So maybe I need to call here on Tuesday and rent whatever extra equipment I need. Okay?
So anything on Wednesday?
Wednesday typically is a quiet day. Q-U-I-E-T, quiet day.
Calm before the storm.
Calm before the storm. You're just going to check and make sure nothing goes wrong, but you're not doing a whole lot on Wednesday. You might take Wednesday off. Thursday's a very busy day because you're going to receive all the product, and then you're going to have to make sure that everything that you received is accounted for. You're going to do your paperwork. What about Loomis?
What is Loomis?
Okay, Wells Fargo?
It's an armored truck.
Armored
It's the
truck.
money truck.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do on Monday is I'm going to call on Monday the bank and I'm going to say, I need a bank fund of $50,000. I need $20,000 in quarters. I need $10,000 in fives, $10,000 in ones, and some 20s. Because I have to make up all the banks, right? I have to give the bank notice in advance. And then I'm going to call Loomis and say, I want you to go by First Tennessee Bank and pick up $50,000 and deliver it to me at 8 a.m. on Saturday. And I have a contract with them. And then I want you to come at 7 p.m. and pick it up and take it back to First Tennessee. And they have a night vault where they would deliver it to the night vault.
So the bank gives the money, and then the money from the event, do they give back to the bank?
Well, it'd be kind of like you having a savings account. So at my location, remember, the beginning of the year, this is a single event. We're planning for this stadium. We know we need some liquid cash. So I have a fund of $200,000 that just sits there in the bank that's cash. And I'm going to use that as my cash fund for events. This particular event, I only need $50,000 of it. So I'm going to take the $50,000 out. We're going to use it to make all this money, $70,000, right? When the event is over, I should have $120,000 that I put back into that account. That make sense? So now I'm basically $70,000 to the good. I'll then transfer that on Monday following. Okay, when the bank opens, I'm transferring that $70,000 out of that savings account and into another account. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's say that this is a big event and we don't have ice machines. What do I need?
Ice.
When do I want ice delivered?
Probably the day of, a couple hours before.
Yeah, but I got all this other stuff going on. So you have to coordinate it. When do I want the ice? Do I want the ice coming at 8 a.m.?
How about like 10?
Maybe 10? Does that give them enough time to get it in all the stands?
I don't know. If the team gets there early, then no.
Yeah, so you have to manage those kinds of things. What we used to do is we tried to get most of the ice on Fridays and we put it in ice freezers. And then on Saturday morning we would take it out and put it in the different stands. Does that make sense? So we talked about ice. What else do we need to do? What's the number one thing we sell? Sales mix.
Sodas.
Soda. Got a plan for that, don't I? I want to be sure I sanitize all the dispensers, and I want to be sure they all work. Same thing with beer coolers. I can't tell you how many stadiums, like the Liberty Bowl, for example, and they have the beer company show up on either Friday or Saturday, and they deliver all the kegs, and then they find out the coolers aren't working. They're 48 degrees, they're not 32 degrees, 33 degrees. What happens to the beer then?
It goes bad.
It foams. Foams like crazy. So you need to check. Wednesday might be one of those days where you check equipment to see if it's working. Refrigeration. We always had a log. We would go through on Friday and log all the temperatures to be sure everything was right so that we didn't get any surprises. Again, what are we doing?
Planning,
Planning provides an opportunity for,
success,
but does it guarantee it?
no.
No planning will give you what? Ariel's favorite term, chaos. Okay? All right. This is what we call critical planning, critical path method. You know, when we talked about the Super Bowl, I invited you guys to the Super Bowl party, right? Is that something we typically do at a movie theater? No. So I create my own critical path for a Super Bowl party. And I go backwards and I say, okay, we're going to open the gates at, I think this year it was 5 p.m. Actually, it's 4:30. So we're going to open at 4:30. Everything has to be in place and be sparkling, shiny. All the employees have to be ready to go exactly at 4:30. Now, when do I set up the buffet tables? When do I put the food out? One of the items we had was fried clams. Anybody have fried clams before? Can you fry clams at like 2 o'clock and put them out for a 6 o'clock event?
No, they have to be fresh.
Yeah, yeah. So I have to even organize the cooking times, right? Because I can't have fried clam. What could I put out at 2 o'clock?
The sides and stuff like that.
What kind of sides? You're right. I just want to see.
You said fried clams. Is what you're doing? I mean, I don't know what goes in fried clams.
Okay. How about desserts?
There you go.
So I could put out the pies and the cheesecakes and fruit and cheese and those kinds of things early, right?
Plates and cups and napkins.
Exactly. Exactly. The stuff that's not going to spoil. We had ice carvings. Did I have the ice carvings delivered in the morning?
No,
What time did the ice carvings get delivered?
right before it
Sounds
starts.
like
I'm
three.
sure.
3, exactly. See, I created the same thing. And what I'll do next week is I'll bring you my critical path on what I did. Who's going to do what at what time, and when are you going to start, and what is the order? But I go in reverse all the way back to, there's a lot of decor that has to go involved, right, if you're going to do this right.
So
Can you order the decor 3 weeks in advance?
Yeah, sure you can.
Okay. How can you order decor in advance?
Oh, no. You couldn't order it in advance.
Why?
And hold it for because the other people, like, it's a service where they rent it out for that
No,
day.
no.
Right?
I thought you had it. I don't know who's playing in the game. I got to wait till they get finished and they say, okay, you know, the Patriots are playing the Eagles. What if the Patriots had lost? And I bought all this Patriot stuff and the Jaguars are playing, right? So there are certain things you can't do too far in advance. So for example, if I wanted linens and I wanted to match the team colors, you know, Jacksonville is green and black and white, right? The Patriots are red, white, and blue. So if I don't want to order twice. So, all right, critical path method. Let me run through this real quick and we'll take a break. Product and materials, personnel, we've done this already, equipment, other, and then finally the critical step is you. So every event should have an event planning labor guide with projections. Labor guide, same thing as an organizational chart. Who's going to be responsible for what? We talked about projected sales, and we kind of done this already. It's in the book. Concession stands. What's the percent of sales? So this would be 70% of 70,000. So the projected sales would be 49,000. This right here is the same thing as this right here. And they're different categories. So you might have portables, you might have bars. You can break it down. All of those sales equal 100%, just like we said right here. Step 2, planning the labor. We did this, remember? Support, 2% of 70,000 was $1,400. So that's this portion right here, all of that. Hours. Now, I know that on the exam, there are going to be questions about how many hours each person is going to be able to work. So you remember how we did this right here? You're gonna have to be able to decipher in the case history how much we're paying these people per hour, and then there'll be a chart in there. And you're gonna fill out a chart that looks just like this. And it'll ask you, how many hours can you schedule for concession employees? What would the answer be? What would you look for?
612.
612, that's right, Kevin. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll kind of practice for the test.